Welcome to Asian Movie Scene. Warning, spoilers ahead. Today we will talk about a Japanese horror movie. Putting your strength, intelligence, and sanity to the test with a trick around every corner, what do you do? This one will have your reasoning with utter madness. As I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do and how to beat the twisted games in As the Gods Will. It's a normal school day until the teacher's head explodes into bloody marbles and a Japanese Daruma doll pops out of his stump, telling the class he wants to play a game. Daruma dolls are a common symbol for good luck in Japan, but it's safe to say this one isn't the lucky kind. This Daruma doll here starts the game and turns around as these two kids run for the exit and their heads explode into marbles too. This particular death game is way too bloody for YouTube. So every time you see these here, someone's head had just exploded and you'll have to use a little bit of imagination. The doll tells them the rules of the game. This is red light, green light, the nightmare version. Usually this is just a children's game where you have to sneak up on the leader in the front and tag them before they turn around and see you. But in this version, they have to push the button in the back of the doll without being seen before time runs out and he turns around and sees you're moving, your head will explode. Okay, this is insane. But if you're only thinking about why this is happening, you're going to lose the game. We need to be thinking about how to keep our heads and beat this thing before the time runs out. If we're free to move around when he's not looking, we need to maximize this time to gather information and develop a team strategy as much as possible. This hero tries to rush forward to push the button but does it make it in time as the Daruma doll turns his head and catches him moving. Being a hero won't work here. But if we move as a group and each take one step at a time in unison, our chances of survival increase. Some people will mess up, but with each step we'll get closer to achieving the goal. Next we can block his sight. Once we're all closer, I toss my jacket over its head aiming to cover the doll's eyes just as it turns around. You would then have a better chance of touching the button without getting killed. In a situation like this, every piece of information is useful for survival and we need to think about what this doll limitations are. He has no neck, so even if he can turn himself around he doesn't appear to have the physical ability to look downwards beyond his peripheral vision. So if it's me, I'd consider crawling on the floor and sneaking up to him from below the desk. If I could hide below his eye level until he turns around again, I could quickly reach the button without getting caught. Now I wouldn't actually do this myself because it's way too risky, but I would advertise it to my schoolmates as a strategy and encourage others to test the idea. There's only 2 people left standing with 35 seconds remaining, but the kid's friend has an idea. He tells Shun here to use him as a springboard to vault over all these dead bodies. And with less than 10 seconds left the kid rushes forward. He jumps off his friend's back and makes it to the Daruma doll pressing the button with 1 second remaining. What a badass way to win the game. But there's no time to celebrate because this kid's head explodes and we learn a simple fact. In this case, there can only be one winner. The Daruma doll explains the student who presses the button is the only one gets to live and then warns him that he's a mouse and that the cat is coming. This means that there are more horrifying games we have to go through and we can't relax now. Considering all these dead students saved my life by making enough mistakes for me to learn from, I'm looking for other students from the other classes to try banding together. The more bodies that are between me and the next death game, the lower the probability that I'm dying right away and I can figure out how to keep myself alive. That's when the kid's childhood friend Ichika opens the door. He finds out that she was in a Daruma doll game of her own and she won just like him. He uses his momentary freedom to call the police but finds out he's not in a service area. Okay, this is the time to find a way out and to plan ahead. I would take this opportunity to explore all escape options. Even if we find out there's no way to escape and we could focus on being the Gapes. It's clear that other games are coming, as the Daruma doll said. So I'm gonna take my time carefully investigating my surroundings and gathering useful resources for whatever might come next. Things to throw like pencil cases, rulers, scissors, or even textbooks. They continue running until they reach the gymnasium where they see a bunch of other students wearing mice costumes. The door suddenly shuts itself behind them and now they're locked in. This is their next game. And as the writing of the floor explains, the objective is to put a bell on a cat. The class president orders them to put on the mice costumes but they don't, and this hesitation will pay off later. The floor opens up and a giant Maneki Nico statue rises up. This is yet another symbol of good luck in Japan that's going to bring these students the exact opposite. The goal, to put the giant bell in the cat's basket collar without getting eaten. Okay. Whoever designed these challenges are complete psychopaths. We're told to get into a mouse costume and personally I would wish to put one on because I'd be scared of punishment for not following the rules, but immediately it eats a mouse, but those still in their school uniforms are left alone. So there's more to this than it seems. As long as there are mice of chase, it's blind to the students who were still wearing uniforms. If the mice costumes are optional, then this must considered a variable in our strategy to defeat it. So I would take off my mouse costume immediately and take a step back to safely assess the pieces of the game. This collar is about 20 feet high, double the height of a regular basketball hoop. Unless you're dude perfect and nearly impossible shots, the likelihood of a regular student getting the shot off is extremely low. And it would take too many attempts to even consider as a viable option. And with the cat running us over and swiping at us, it's too dangerous to make multiple attempts to throw the bell in its face. It also has a string along its back that could be grabbed if we ran up it. My solution is to climb it for a dunk or layup. Whenever it eats a mouse it pauses, and that's our best chance of this. You could wrap the bell on your shirt and tie behind your back like a sling, then when a classmate gets eaten, climb up the cat with the bell in the sling and work your way around the collar to go in for the dunk. One of the students is the basketball team's M.V.P and has the girl pass the bell over to him. The student makes the free throw, but the bell is caught by the cat, who throws it right back at the basketball player. They just lost their MVP. And now it can use its hands. Things just got way worse. They realize the cat is only eating mice, and they finally take off their mouse costumes, putting an end to the most dangerous, costly event ever. But with no more mice to eat, it starts going for humans. Now this is where we need to get a little creative with our teamwork. If there's too many mice, more people will be eaten. And if the cat has only one mouse to chase, then you're stuck in a mouse costume with the undivided attention of a giant cat. I would make everyone wear only the mouse legs and fold the top of the costume down. That way everyone could rotate wear the mouse costume depending on where the cat is in the room. And when it needs to be distracted somewhere else by simply throwing on the top of the costume like a jacket, we can effectively appear and disappear to the cat as needed. Work together to get the bell in the basket and avoid getting eaten. Shun here takes one for the team and puts on a mouse costume. And after getting seriously cat-handled, he realizes he can hear it complain about its itchy back. He finds out so long as he's wearing this hood he can understand what it's saying. I didn't expect this, but we can't be too surprised. A cat that likes mice of course likes to be scratched. It probably also likes catnip, tearing couch sofas, and licks itself inappropriately in front of guests. We need to think of this thing, not just as a monster but with everything we know about cat behavior. They also love chasing lights and lasers, and if any one of them had a laser pointer they could distract the cat away from the mice. Now that's obviously a joke, but if you're not doing everything you can to use what you know against this thing to keep yourself alive, then you're already losing the game. He climbs up the cat and begins to scratch its back with the help of the other students. They all work together until it finally goes to sleep. Shun here is about to put an end to this game, but one of the students questions if there could only be one winner like the first game. This is a valid point, but there's enough objective logic here to infer the answer. In the children's game, red light, green light, there can only be one winner. Whoever reaches the end first, and everyone else is eliminated from the game. Basketball, however, is a team sport, and when one person scores the team benefits. This is enough to convince me to surrender the shot as someone with more skill. If someone was insistent on shooting and skilled enough to take the shot, I'd put my ego aside and let them have the bell. We don't have time to argue. And it's important to get the job done quickly without interference. Their argument for shooting privileges wakes up the cat, who rips two students apart. They don't have time to put it back to sleep, but Shun has another idea. Grabbing the basketball and some spare mice costumes, he and his friend disguise the bell as a basketball. Since he knows the cat relies on seeing something before it acts, they can confuse the cat and maybe get at least one shot up before time runs out. In a high-pressure situation this is really good thinking. He's been paying attention to the cat's behavior, knows its weakness and is perfectly exploiting it, but he made one mistake. If I had seen this room before I would have used it more strategically throughout the game. We could run inside for cover as a mouse and come out safely as a student. There also might have been more basketballs in there to shoot and distract the cat with. The girl takes a shot, but the cat smacks it away, giving the boy the chance to shoot the belt, but it bounces right off the rim and there's no enough time to try again. Right at the last second the student jumps over the cat's head and slams it into the hoop. Game over. But the killing continues as the hero of the hour starts killing the other students, believing they don't deserve to live because they are brainless losers. Okay, this guy is a psychopath, but he's also not wrong. Unfortunately, I'm not trusting him in a game because he is blinded by fanaticism instead of survival and the greater good. Killing them off serves us no purpose. The more expendable people that are in the games, the more we can benefit from their deaths. Every game will require a certain amount of mistakes to learn how to play them, and these kinds of people are perfect for that. Let them make the mistakes and we study the game's response and then use that information to beat it. Then the cat blows sleeping gas at them, knocking them out. When Shun here wakes up, he finds himself in a room with an old classmate and some strangers. All 4 students have survived 2 games, the Daruma and the cat game. This guy activates a device and the group finds out they're trapped in a giant floating cube with no way for anyone to break in and save them. The government and military are powerless. Someone knocks on the door and these 4 Kokoshi dolls enter the room. They're here to play Kagam Kagam, a game where the player wears a blindfold while the Kokoshi dolls sing as they circle around him, and he must guess who's behind him when the music stops. This guy guesses incorrectly and gets a laser to the head as the dolls take control of his body and start bashing his head against the floor. Then this girl goes after him, but she can't figure out who it is either and gets ripped in half from the legs up. Okay. This one is tricky because the premise leads you to assume it's a game of chance like Russian roulette for children. So the strategy here is to eliminate as much chance out of the equation as possible. And we do this by gathering as much information as we can from every sense of perception we have available to us and then using them to cheat the game. We can try to observe their starting order before putting the blindfold on. If we can confirm they form a circle in a specific gender pattern, our chances already improve. Next, we use our ears to track them by distinguishing the male voices from the female voices. If we know the pattern and locate a male's voice as its circle, it tells us the gender that is behind us when the music stops. Now all that's left is to determine which member of the gender it is. And now comes the cheating part of the strategy. Before I put the blindfold on, I would assign a number of taps per each doll. 1 tap for this one and 4 taps for this one. When the doll stops singing, the other student in the room can tap the number for the doll and hopefully not get ripped apart from where the sun don't shine. When it's Shun's turn to play, he can't figure out who's behind him. They hear a doll tell him he's out of time and another doll repeats it, but this was all a part of his plan. Realizing who just spoke, he deduces correctly which one is behind him. He tricked this doll by playing a recording of one of them saying "you're out of time," baiting her into speaking and revealing the order of their positions around him. All the dolls explode to dust and one of them drops the key they need to move to the next stage. The 2 survivors walk out of the room and see this guy come running at them asking to hold their hand. Behind them another doll is chasing them and they all grab hands just in time. The monster doll inspects them but leaves when it sees they're all linked together. Ichika comes running around the corner and Shun manages to save her from the hand-holding monster just in time. They meet some other students as well. And discover that to beat this game they need 7 students to turn 7 keys at the exact same. They don't have enough of either until that killer student from the cat game appears and has brought exactly what they need with an extra person to spare, and to no one's surprise, he eliminates him without remorse. Once again, foolish. I would use this extra kid as a lookout for the hand-holding doll because we will need to stop holding hands in order to turn the keys, and if the hand-holding doll catches us unlinked we might not be able to turn the keys in time. Everything is a resource here and this guy is wasting them. I would confront him that this is a poor strategy and that we can let the game kill him later, but he did just save our lives for the second time. So I'm not gonna hold it against him too much. They all turn keys at the same time, beating this game with 12 seconds left on the clock. Meanwhile, the Cube is live streaming their victory as everyone gathers in Shibuya Square to watch and cheer for them. The group go through and find themselves in a hot spring, except everything is frozen over. As soon as I see this environment I'm staying against the walls. This looks like a lake that's frozen over and I'm not leaving myself vulnerable to any traps without reason. I'm getting a head start on the game and encouraging the others to do the same. Suddenly a giant polar bear comes surfing in and tells them that in this game, everyone will be asked a question that they need to answer truthfully. If they don't, they must choose someone to be killed. Okay. This sounds too easy to be true and I'm not relaxing here. The real game is something hidden beneath the surface and we have to find out what's the trick. There's no incentive for anyone to lie, but surely they will let us all pass through. I'm starting this one off by choosing not to trust a single word this polar bear says, expecting traps or double meaning, insinuation, or metaphor. We can't think literally. Even when we're trapped in a giant cube and talking to a giant polar bear, the first question asked is, "What is your favorite food?" Which they all answer easily. But the bear suddenly freaks out because someone told a lie and threatens to kill them if they don't identify the liar in 2 minutes. The players decide that this guy must be it because his favorite food is parsley and the bear crushes him to death. Now I'm a classic overanalyzer, so this one would honestly scare the living out of me. The answer to this question is deceptively complicated because it's based on a general opinion and not objectively true. If I've had different favorite foods throughout the years or a favorite in each food category, and if I change my mind after trying new dishes, how could I have one true answer to this question? So therefore, how could the polar bear know the truth is if I myself do not? And this revelation is how we beat the game. If I don't know the truth, then neither does the polar bear. And none of us have any reason to lie. So when the polar bear says he knows someone is lying, that statement itself is a lie and I would accuse him as the secret liar to beat the game. The bear tells them there's an imposter in the group who's intentionally lying to get them killed. This student realizes that everyone goes to the same school except for this girl. So she must be the imposter, and the polar bear stomps her flat. Now that's what I call a high school crush. But as the kid looks at the bear's paw, he sees a black patch of skin and realizes that this is a Japanese demon bear as the snow melts off, revealing his true identity underneath. The group has taken to their new arena where these Matryoshka dolls appear, announcing this will be the final game, kick the can. The rules are simple. Whoever is it must take the can and place it in the circle. Then try to catch the others by looking at their face, call out their name and step on the can. Those captured can be freed if another player kicks the can, but the kicker must sacrifice his life because the can will explode. The game ends if the players avoid being captured, or the one who is it wins by capturing at least 3 players by the time the sun sets. Then they draw sticks to decide their roles and the psychotic student is it. Everyone runs before the student kicks one of the dolls into the air, knocking the can to the ground and places it at the designated spot. Okay, hold on a second. Didn't they say that can would explode if it was kicked? This might mean it's not triggered by impact and could be one of the game's tricks if we need to kick the can to save someone later. But more importantly, if I was it, I need to manage my time wisely because finding people will be very time consuming and I need to know how much time I have. The setting sun is too abstract and I need to convert that into minutes. The best way to do this is to hold your fingers horizontally against the sky in between the horizon and the sun. Each finger that fits in between the sun and the earth is approximately 15 minutes. The two boys try to hide as far away as possible, but the psycho student finds them first and beats them into submission. That's 2 down, 2 to go. Now, finding people who have already hidden will waste a lot of time. And by retrieving the can first, you're giving everyone too much time. If it were me, I would skip the can and quietly follow them to their hiding spots first. Once someone's find a good hiding spot, it's unlikely they would move from it, and if I know where they're hiding, I can go retrieve the can and come back to their hiding spot to catch them. I would also prioritize who I should put in prison. The best person to follow is Shun because he's gonna hide with the girl. In that way, I am more likely to catch 2 people at once. Shun has proven himself to think quickly on his feet and be heroic while the other 2 are more cowardly. So if Shun here is locked up first, it's very unlikely anybody will be coming to save them. And as long as I get 3 captured, I win the game. There's only 2 players left. The psycho kid spots them and runs up the stairs. Shun escapes as the girl goes off to block the entrance, but he breaks through and captures her. Shun here is stuck trying to figure out what to do as he's going to lose if he doesn't free the prisoners. Now, Shun's team did not strategize as well, but honestly, they have the best chance of surviving from the start. He has to see your face and call your name to capture you. By limiting either these 2 as a possibility, you can work the game to your advantage. So I would have covered my face of my jacket so he can't legally capture me as a prisoner. I would tell everyone to do this. No matter how much you're punched, kicked, or beaten, if you don't treat your face, it will become impossible for him to win. Then there's no need for anyone to kick the can and sacrifice themselves because no prisoners will be taken. This is the best possible outcome. If someone does get caught, we can remove another win condition from him. When he's out finding people to capture, I would stay by to move the can and hide it. Even if he sees your face and says your name, you're unofficially captured until he steps on the can. If they had thought about this from the beginning, they wouldn't be this hopeless situation. But then Shun here sees this old of arbor nearby and he gets a clever idea. He leaves his hiding place dressed in rusty armor that could give you tetanus just by looking at it. This is clever. One of the rules of being captured requires clear eye contact between a player and the person who was it. The helmet not only makes it harder, but the entire armor set might protect him from the explosion if he kicks the can. He's covered 2 weaknesses. That gives him the advantage he needs to beat this game. But it's too hard to move and there's no way he can fight the student. He backs away to the edge and gets caught, but this was a part of his plan. He chains the psycho and throws himself off the wall, dragging the other boy along with him. As the student is busy trying to pull the armor up, he's escaped and climbed back over, runs where the can. He kicks it, but it doesn't explode. His team wins and the dolls reveal that they lied about the explosion. Now that it's all over, all of the players are given popsicles as a reward, but the girl finishes her ice cream and realized that these popsicle sticks declare who gets to die, and this was a secret final test. They only get the pass if luck is on their side. The unlucky players evaporate into magic powder and the 2 winners are transported to the top of the white cube as people below celebrate their survival. But what do you think? How would you beat as the gods will? Let me know with a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe and check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos like this. Until next time, have a damn good day. Thanks for watching. Asian movie scenes. Over and out.